Welcome to Unknown Theory. In today's video we'll be explaining our theory as to why we think the moon landings were fake. Disclaimer: we can't confirm any of the theories or stories we talk about in our channel. All stated information is purely for entertainment purposes. Supposedly the first moon landing by humans was on July 20, 1969. With a crew of only 3 astronauts composed of Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Edwin Aldrin, they managed to land the spaceflight rocket, Apollo 11 on the moon, or so they say. 52 years after that, there have been only 6 more human landings on the moon, and the last one was in 1972 with Apollo 17. So why is it that 50 years have passed by and we haven't been able to land again on the moon, if apparently a total of 24 astronauts have touched the moon's surface before, when technology wasn't even half of what it is today? Well, according to astronauts and scientists, it's because of financial and political risks. Apparently, NASA's success in the late 1960s was because of the ongoing Cold War with the Soviet Union. John Logsdon, a retired professor of political science and international affairs at the George Washington University's Elliott School of International Affairs in Washington, D.C., said that the Cold War was an incentive so that back then President John F. Kennedy approved NASA's investigation and financed it.
The point was to beat the Russians to the moon. Kennedy, in a secretly recorded meeting in November of 1962, said the Soviets have made this a test of the system. That's why we're doing it. And everything we do should be aimed at getting on the moon before the Soviet Union. Actually, the idea of planting a flag didn't come until a few months before the actual landing. What we were going to do wasn't clear to symbolize. The idea was to say this is something that the United States had done for all mankind. And so the flag was planted, showing it was the United States, but there was a plaque on the lunar lander that said, "We came in peace for all mankind."
During the Cold War, the United States wanted to prove global leadership and power over its communist rivals, while at the same time demonstrating that the future lay with their political and economic systems. So that NASA could finance their projects, the US gave NASA a 5% budget of the nation's federal budget, 10 times larger than what it is currently. Political risk exists because priorities change, budgets change, administrations change, Congresses change. For example, the Constellation program, which took shape under President George W. Bush, was cancelled in 2010 by President Barack Obama. Obama directed NASA to instead send astronauts to near-Earth asteroids. But President Donald Trump nixed that plan in 2017, putting the agency back on course for the moon. NASA said that by 2024 there will be another apparent moon landing, with the space project being called Artemis. But here in Unknown Theory, we believe that all of these excuses are because of the simple truth that we never actually landed on the moon. It took 400,000 NASA employees and contractors to put Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon in 1969, but only 2 men spread the idea that it was all a hoax. Their names: Bill Kaysing and Phil Plait. The first man to start this conspiracy was Bill Kaysing, an American writer and scientist who actually contributed to the US space program between 1956 and 1963. He was an employee of Rocketdyne, a company that helped design the Saturn V rocket engines. In 1976, he self-published a pamphlet called We Never Went to the Moon, America's $30 billion Swindle, which sought evidence for his conviction by means of grainy photocopies and ludicrous theories. Yet somehow he established a few ideas that are kept alive to this day in social media and popular culture. Back in February 2001, Fox Broadcasting ran a documentary titled Conspiracy Theory: Did We Land on the Moon? Hosted by X-Files actor Mitch Pileggi. The program was an hour long, and featured interviews with a series of people who believe that NASA faked the Apollo moon landings in the 1960s and 1970s. The biggest voice in this was Bill Kaysing, who claims to have all sorts of hoax evidence, including pictures taken by the astronauts, engineering details, discussions of physics and even some testimony by astronauts themselves. The program's conclusion was that the whole thing was faked in Area 51. According to them, NASA did not have the technical capability of going to the moon, but pressure due to the Cold War with the Soviet Union forced them to fake it. And now, besides conspiracy theorists or scientists, many regular people are researching if the moon landings were a hoax. In the past, you saw the moon landings and there was no way to check any of it. Now, in the age of technology, a lot of young people are now investigating for themselves. Thanks to new technology, many statements backing that the moon landings were fake actually make sense. Phil Plait, also known as the Bad Astronomer, is an American astronomer, skeptic, writer and popular science blogger who's also a big advocate in the theory that the moon landings are weird. He has a blog called badastronomy.com, in which he talks about astronomy, and one of the most interesting articles he's ever written is his take on the moon landings, in which he explains his reasons for why he thinks it's all a hoax, or not. Plait has worked as part of the Hubble Space Telescope team, images and spectra of astronomical objects, as well as engaging in public outreach advocacy for NASA missions, so he seems to know what he's talking about. One of the main statements people say is that in the NASA photographs there are no stars in space. As you can see, the astronauts appear to be in space but there are no stars around them to see. Another is that there is no blast crater. A rocket capable of landing on the moon should have burned out a huge crater on the surface, yet there is nothing there. Or that the flag planted by Buzz Aldrin shouldn't be waving on the moon. When the astronauts are assembling the American flag, the flag waves. Kaysing says this must have been from an errant breeze on the set. NASA on the other hand said this was because Aldrin was moving it while he was digging it to the ground. People also argue as to why the pictures are so perfect. I mean, it was the 1960s after all. Theorists have even suggested that filmmaker Stanley Kubrick may have helped NASA fake the first lunar landing, given that his 1968 film 2001, A Space Odyssey proves that the technology existed back then to artificially create a space-like set, not to mention all the money the space program had access to. And the craziest theory is the government killing astronauts and people who worked on the Apollo missions. The theory stated by Kaysing says that the Apollo 1 fire that killed Roger Chaffee, Ed White and Gus Grisham was no accident. Grisham was ready to talk to the press about the moon hoax, so NASA and the government killed him. Kaysing says NASA also killed other people who were about to blow the whistle as well. Even if these statements seem far-fetched, many pop culture references have risen from these theories. Shows like The X-Files, or movies like James Bond in Diamonds Are Forever, display certain skepticism about the moon landings and everything going with NASA or space programs. There's even a film called Capricorn 1, released in 1978, that shows that the idea that the government was fooling everyone was no laughing matter. Here it's about a Mars mission that goes wrong. The authorities opt to fake it and kill the astronauts to prevent them from revealing the truth.
Wonderful. We go along with you and lie our asses off in the world of truth and ideals is protected. But we don't want to take part in some giant rip-off of yours, and somehow or other we're managing to ruin the country. You're pretty good, Jim. I'll give you that.
Very similar to Kaysing's theory of the Apollo 1 astronauts. So what do you think about the moon landing being fake? Do you have any more theories that back or contradict this conspiracy? Make sure to comment down below. Also don't forget to like and subscribe.